We're in part 4 of our review for percentages and proportions test in seventh grade math. And on this one, we're going to just do a few more percentage problems, which were in the back of the review, starting with problem 13. All right, so this is a discount situation and then a tip situation. So first you take some money off, but then you put some money back on because of the tip. All right, so Spaldo is paying $36 for a meal, but he has a 20% off discount for it. So remember, discounts are always going to be your part. So I like to make diagrams, remember, to help me visualize what's happening in the problem. So 36 is going to be your total, and that's the original cost of the meal. And then they are applying to that a drop in price of 20%. All right, so if you use 20%, that means he's going to actually pay about 80% of the price. That's what he's actually paying. And we don't know what that is, but what they actually want is they actually want this value because they want to know how much you pay after the discount and then after the tip. But I'm going to try to find out what the discount is. So I'm going to use the 20% and figure out what the discount is and then subtract that from 36 to figure out what that is. There's an alternative method where you can use the 80% and get directly at this value. Remember, whatever you pair up, you get. So if you use the 20%, then you get the discount amount. If you use the 80%, you would get the actual amount that you pay after the discount. But I like to, you can do it either way. I'm going to show you using the gap. All right. So when you do that, you start with the is off setup. You put the percentage in place, and I'm using the 20% because I'm trying to use the gap. So remember, if you use the 80%, which is what you pay, if you discount at 20, you pay 80, right? You will go straight to your answer. And you could do it that way. It'd probably be more efficient. But I like to go to plug the part like this. So that's what I'm going to do. So anyways, here you put the whole, which is 36. That's usually what's paired with 100% that goes down here. And this is where the part goes. And I'm looking for the discount. So the part goes up there. Next, I have to cross multiply. So I'm going to do that. And now we'll get 100x. And see, where you're looking for the part, you always get 100x. And 20 times 36, which is 72. Oh. It's not letting me erase. That is interesting. Intriguing. 72. Let me use the calculator just to make sure. I think it's 7,200. Let's see. 36 times 20. 720. So I'm glad that I did that. 720. Okay. All right. And then you have to divide both sides by whatever's next to the x. And by the way, you can totally use a calculator during the test. You don't have to do math on your head because this is the chapter. It's testing if you can do percentages, not if you can do arithmetic. So you're supposed to use the calculator if you want to. You don't have to, but it's a good way to make sure that you don't get it wrong. So divide both sides by 100, and then that comes out to 7.2. And now what I just found is not what I paid. I found the gap. I found that it drops by 7.2, right? So then what do I actually pay, right? So then what I actually pay would be $36 minus the 7.2, which is the discount. And let's see what that is. 72 minus 7.2 should be 68.50. Oh, not 72, 36. I was like, what am I doing? 36 minus 7.2, 28.8. So you're going to pay 28.8 after the discount. But he tips. He gives a 15% tip. So now you have a second problem to solve. So there's many points in this question, so make sure you take advantage of it. So you used to be at 28.8, all right? But now you're going to increase this by 15%. So you are adding 15% to the price because of it, right? So the 28% is your new whole, your new original value, but now you're going to get a new value because you're going to do that. Now, once again, you have a choice here. If you use the 15%, you solve for the gap, right? So you solve for this discount here. So I'm going to put an F here as in for final price. Or actually, this is not F. Let's use this as a tip. So I'll put a T here for tip. So if you use the 15%, if you use the gap, you solve for the gap. You can also use the actual final percentage, because think about it. If I pay 100% plus 15%, I'm really paying 115%. If you use this percentage, you'll get straight at your final value. So in other words, if you just like before, you could have set out the proportion with 80 and gone straight to this value if you had used 80. So if you use the 80, you would have gone straight to 28.8 on the setup. And here, you can do the same kind of thing. If you use 115, you go straight to your answer. But I am going to use the gap, all right? So if I use that, there's different ways to do it. You can choose whatever way you want to do it. So I'm going to use the 15%. So I put 15% where the percent goes. And then the whole goes in the bottom. So I'm going to put 28.8. And then at the top, I will put my percentage, the part that I am trying to find out what it is, which is the T. Should actually use the T for the tip. All right, next step is to cross multiply. So let's go ahead and do that. So you have to do 20.8 times 15 and then 100T. So this becomes 100T equals 28.8 times 15. So let's do that. That'll be 28.8 times 15, which gives you 432. Then I have to divide both sides by what's next to my variable in order to cancel it. So I'm going to divide both sides by 100. That will cancel out the 100. And then I find out that my tip is just going to be around $4.32 if I gave 15%. By the way, some people calculate the tip out of the original price they pay or the price after tax, or the people calculate before tax. But the way this problem is phrased, it only makes sense that the tip was calculated after the discount. So that's how he did it. All right. So anyways, if the 4.32 is not, though, the final price, because that's just the tip. So that means I am paying 4.32 more. I still have to add that to my original. So my actual final answer would be 28.8 plus the 4.32 that I added to the place. So let's do that in a calculator. See what we get. So you got 28.8 plus 4.32. That comes out to $33.12. $33.12 is his final price for the meal that he actually paid. Now, remember, you could have gotten straight to this number if you had, from the 28, if you had used 115 on your setup instead of the 15%. But since we use the 15%, we have to add our answer because tip, like tax, gets or increase gets added to the original value. Okay, so now we're going to do a problem with commissions. Roger sells a car, and he gets a 6% commission when he does so. And he sells the car for $8,000. So how much money is he going to make? So commission is going to be a part problem. So if we set up a little diagram to represent the situation here, we have a car that is originally $8,000. And that's what's paired up with the 100%, which is the original value. And we want a little fraction of that. That's about 6%. And we need to figure out what that value is. All right, so then we're going to set up an is-off over here. And I put the percentage of the problem in place. That I'm going to use 6% because I'm trying to find the edge. So I matched the number on the edge of my diagram. And that's 6 divided by 100 on the left side. Then I put my of in place, or my whole, which is the 8,000, or the original value. And then I'm looking for that part, that commission. All right, so then I'm going to try to find out what that is by cross-multiplying is my next step. Once I set up the proportion to solve the percentage, the next step is to cross-multiply. And since, once again, I'm looking for the part, I'm going to end up with a 100x that I have to divide by 100 to get rid of. And 6 times 8,000 is 48,000. All right. And then when you divide that by 100, because I have to divide both sides by 100 in order to cancel out the 100, the 100 goes away. And then when I do 48,000 divided by 100, I just end up with $480. And that's going to be his commission, which makes kind of sense. It's a little fraction of the total, so 480, final answer. All right, now we have a markup problem. Now, markups are increased situations. So I'm going to set up the diagram starting with the original value down here on the left side. And we're going from 2,000 to 3,500. So what we're going to do is put 2,000 over here, and that is your original value. And that's what's matched up with the 100%. And then I know that I'm going to raise all the way to 3,500. And what I want, because I want the markup, what I actually want is this. I want the gap. I want to find out how much is the percent increase or the markup. I don't really want this number, the final percentage. If that means if I use the 3,500, I'm not going to get the one number I want, because I'm going to get this number instead, which is the final percentage. But if I use the gap itself, the difference between these values, then I will be able to get my answer. So what I'm going to do is figure out what the gap is first. So that's 3,500 minus the original 2,000. And of course, when you do that, it's easy enough to do in your head. You get about $1,500 for this gap. So that means that what I'm adding here is $1,500. Now, that's what I'm going to use on my actual setup, because if I use the gap, I get the gap. If I use the 3,500, I'm going to get the edge number. But if I use the gap, I'll get the gap number. And so that's what I'm going to use on my setup. So I do a little is-off setup over here, and I put a percentage in place. That's what I'm looking for. So I put an X there first, divided by 100. I put my original in place, and that's the $2,000. Right, that's the one that's paired up with 100 on the diagram, 100%. And then I'm going to use the gap, not the 3,500, the 1,500, to solve the problem. All right, so then I do that, and my next step is going to be to cross multiply. So I have to do 2,000 times X and 100 times 1,500. So that's going to give me 2,000X. And then 1,500 with another 2 zeros added, because I am multiplying times 100. So there you go, 1,500, and then add another 2 zeros to make 150,000. It looks like we have to solve for. My next step is to divide by what's next to the 100, and this time is 2,000, even though my handwriting is really tough to read. I apologize for that. So 2,000 divided by both sides. That will cancel out the 2,000 on this side, and then I just have to do whatever that is. And the zeros will cancel out here, and cancel out here. So I just have to do 150 divided by 2, which is 75. And since I was looking for a percentage, my answer is 75%. And that is my final answer because I used the gap. So I found the gap. That means I am adding 75% more. That's a pretty big markup the dealership is doing. Again, if I had plugged in 3,500 here, I would have gotten 175 for my answer, and that wouldn't have been the markup. That would have been the new percentage. So I'd have to subtract 100 to actually get the gap, which is what I want. And so that's how you do this markup problem. And we have one more here before finishing this test. And that's when we're trying to figure out which of these situations gives you the most discount. All right, so the first situation is when you buy one, get one free. So if you do that, let's say, for example, you're spending something that is $100, right? So you would get two things for $100 because the second one is free. So you pay nothing for the second one. I remember we're just using $100 to help us compare these scenarios. So scenario one, you pay $100 and get two things, right? Now, how about getting 25% off on your final purchase? And that's why I'm using 100. That's because it's easy to find percentages when you use 100 because then the percentage itself is the number, right? So 25% off of 100 is just $25. So that means that you would get $75 to buy one thing. Yes? Now, for part B here, option B, you get buy one and get the second one $40 off. So the first one will be $100, and the second one will be $60 because you're getting 40% off, which is $40 off if you're using 100 as a comparison. So that means you would get two for 160. Not 140. 40 is what you discount it. 160 is what you actually pay. So that would be two for that 160. So this is already better. So we know that B is no good. And by the way, if you think about it this way, what you're really paying is $50 per type, right? Because the second one is off. So it's kind of like you paid $50 per each thing. So $75 for one thing, that's not as good of a deal. You are end up spending more money here, but you're also getting more out of it. So this is still a better deal, unless you don't want to spend the extra cash, right? Then this would make sense. But A is winning so far. Then you get buy two, get the third one free. So that means you would spend $200 to get three of them, which comes out to about $66 or 66.6 repeating dollars per item. And so that means that the $50 for two, $50 per item of this one is still a better deal. Again, it might make sense to do it this way if you need three things, right? But even then, you could get four for 200, and so it would still make more sense to go with this deal, because if you buy four, you would still only spend $200. So you spend the same amount but get one extra. So this is no good. So we go with A, and that is why. So that, my friends, I think is all the problems of the test. We went through all of them in these series, and I hope you find this helpful. And remember, there are resources like the unit review, the tutorial videos that I recorded, and lots of other things in the Summit platform and that you can use to help prepare you. You can study with Khan Academy, with Moby Max. You can do the extra practice that I have assigned. You can come to office hours. Just make sure you take advantage of that to prepare for the test as best as possible. I'll see you next time, and I hope you do well and don't do anything that would not make your mama proud.